Welcome back to the Daily Poem here on the Close Reads Podcast Network. I am David Kern. Today's poem is brought to you by Robert Louis Stevenson, which, if you know anything about Robert Louis Stevenson's poetry, means that this is a poem dedicated to the children who are listening. I know a pretty good percentage of our listeners out there are kids. And I just want to say to all of you kids out there who are listening, thank you for listening. And I love hearing all the stories from your parents on Facebook about how much you're enjoying the show. So this poem today is dedicated to you. Robert Louis Stevenson lived from 1850 to 1894. He was a novelist, poet, essayist, even a musician, and he even wrote about travel. He was a travel writer as well. If you don't know him for his poetry, then you probably know him for books like Treasure Island, Kidnapped, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Or if you do know him for his poetry, then you would know him for A Child's Garden of Verses. Little factoid for you from Wikipedia, which, every now and then I like to look up a Wikipedia fact. He is the 26th most translated author in the world. 26th. That's pretty good. So I suppose that means that all around the world, even people who don't read English as their first language or at all, love Stevenson. And in a second, I'm going to think about why that is with you, or for you, I suppose, after I read this poem that I'm going to read today. This is called My Shadow. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He's very, very like me from the heels up to the head, and I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow. Not at all like proper children, which is always very slow. For he sometimes shoots up taller like an India rubber ball, and he sometimes gets so little that there's none of him at all. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play, and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He stays so close beside me, he's a coward, you can see. I'd think shame to stick to Nursey as that shadow sticks to me. One morning, very early, before the sun was up, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an errant sleepyhead, had stayed at home behind me and was fast asleep in bed. So I was thinking about why, in so many other languages, people love Stevenson. His poem is very rhythmic, of course, very musical. That's why it's easy to memorize. That's why it's so beloved by so many children. But it's also about these images. It's so humorous, not just in a belly laughing sort of way, but it's pleasant. There's an energy to it that calls us back to our childhood, or if you are still a child, gives voice to the things that you're enjoying about your childhood. It represents those things. And I think it's that is so universal about Stevenson's poetry. It's not just that he makes great rhymes, that he makes language sing. It's that there is a humorous energy to the images, to the things that he is offering us. He is giving us the things we love as children, and he's making them matter. He's showing that they do matter. And I think that is a valuable thing, and thus I think that you should be memorizing as much Robert Louis Stevenson as you possibly can fit into your brain, which, from what I hear, is quite a bit. Okay, let's do this one more time before we sign off for the day. This is My Shadow by Robert Louis Stevenson. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He's very, very like me from the heels up to the head, and I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow. Not at all like proper children, which is always very slow, for he sometimes shoots up taller like an India rubber ball, and he sometimes gets so little that there's none of him at all. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play, and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He stays so close beside me, he's a coward, you can see. I'd think shame to stick to Nursey as that shadow sticks to me. One morning, very early, before the sun was up, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an errant sleepyhead, had stayed at home behind me, and was fast asleep in bed. Before I sign off for the day, I just want to say this to all of you kids out there. what we are going to do is have a little competition. If you want to memorize a Robert Louis Stevenson poem, do so. Choose any Stevenson poem and then get a video. Have your parents turn on the old video camera if they still use that, or more likely just turn on the iPhone or the iPad and get a quick little video of that. Or you can do an audio recording if you like and post it on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook with the hashtag #DailyPoem. Then we'll choose a couple of you who have done this to win a secret prize. So do that sometime between now and the end of October. So today was October 17th. So do this before the end of October, and we will choose a couple of you. We'll choose 3 of you to win a secret prize for doing this. So again, post on social media, have your parents post on social media with the hashtag #DailyPoem. They'll know what that is. And we will choose a couple of winners. So again, choose any Robert Louis Stevenson poem you want, post it, and we'll choose winners. Sound like fun? Let's do it. This has been the Daily Poem. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be back tomorrow with another one.